Hello and welcome to the Reely Rated movie discussion podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Stevens, and again, I'm joined by my co-host, Jess Andrews.
I'm back.
Jess, how are ya?
I be doing fine.
I be good too. Shiver me timbers.
I don't want to touch your timbers.
So, as you can probably tell, we did tell you at the end of the last podcast, so hopefully you listened to that. It was a fun and games preview podcast. We are today talking about Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. It is a absolute favourite of mine from my childhood. Jess, I can only guess the same.
Well, yes, I love it. I was trying to play it cool, but yes, I absolutely love it. I've watched it a bajillion times. I think most people our age have.
So really, I think we were at ideal age to get both parts of the jokes, to get the subtle adult jokes as well as the, laugh out loud Disney slapstick.
Yeah.
I think that's contributed to why the film received quite mixed feedback from critics. A lot of them praised Johnny Depp's performance, saying that he led the film.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But a lot of them also talked about how it was over bloated and it maybe sort of outstayed its welcome. Because I was actually surprised watching it back recently. It's 2 hours 23 minutes roughly.
Well, compare it to the sequels and it's pretty light if you ask me.
Which is true. But what I realised analysing the film this time, watching it back, there's a lot of setup.
Right.
But for me, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but I think that's part of the fun of the film, because you're introduced to so many colourful characters that whereas like an average film that is over bloated and sort of like, has a lot of exposition, I didn't find that to bog down the film.
I think it's quite difficult really to kind of gauge how bloated things are when you watch them as a child, because I was talking to a couple of our friends the other day and we were saying about how children's films like Mary Poppins, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and things like that, they were all like 3 hours long and absolutely completely bloated, but when you're a child you kind of strap yourself in for the journey and you don't really think about, you're not really clock watching, are you, when you're a kid?
No, yeah.
I can see how watching it for the first time as an adult, you can definitely start to feel a bit like, oh my God, when's it going to end? But personally myself, I never felt that way. I think it's fun from beginning to end, to be honest. I don't think it really lags.
No, I don't. And like many critics said, Johnny Depp is the core performance. However, watching it back, Orlando Bloom, I find so adorable as Will Turner. I find his journey so believable. Like he is this wide-eyed, innocent character to start off with. And at the end of the film, you feel like he finally knows who he is as a character, as a person.
Yeah.
Because a few of the comments that I read was that Keira Knightley, she was superfluous to the plot.
No, I don't think so at all.
Thank you. I disagree as well. And I think she holds her own.
I think her kind of... her as a catalyst in the film is very much based on her just being the damsel in distress. They go to rescue her. She's the governor's daughter, so that's why she gets kidnapped and everything. But same as Will, she goes through a journey too, and by the end, she's not exactly a wallflower, is she?
No, I like to think of her, and we'll get more into, because I've got a few points that I didn't realise before, which makes her such a powerful character, but she definitely is a believable MacGuffin.
Yeah.
In that, like you said, she is the catalyst for things to happen. She's definitely catalyst for Will's journey. Like, he sets off on this journey to rescue her. But by her sort of lying to Barbossa about her name, which we'll get into, she makes herself integral. She's quite empowered because she makes herself integral to the plot. She might not be otherwise, but because she's so headstrong, she's like, no, I will be a part of this plot. It's almost like Keira Knightley walked on set and went, I haven't got much of a character here. I will make a character.
Yeah.
Which I know she didn't, guys. I know. But
although I would argue that she definitely is wily enough to save herself in like many of the situations. She doesn't just kind of go, "Oh no, someone save me," does she? She's quite progressive in that way, I'd say. Even before really the whole Disney princess renaissance of the the badass Disney princess.
Yeah.
I feel like she was probably a bit of a starter for that, really.
And I know she probably couldn't be in the film. Do Wreck-It Ralph recently? Was it Ralph breaks the internet? Is it?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it. But they got the whole Disney princess subplot.
Yes.
I know I know Elizabeth isn't animated, but she should be there.
Yeah. Well, the criteria for a Disney princess is to be born of royalty, marry into royalty, or do like a super heroic act. You know, like Mulan when she saves China and all that. That little thing.
I've always said this though, and I said this to you. Not to cut you off, but Kaida from Atlantis. Why is she not there?
Because she didn't make any money.
Well, first of all, Atlantis is so underrated.
It is.
Kaida is absolutely should be a Disney princess. She is, like you just said, she is royalty. She's born into royalty.
Yeah, and she's heroic.
And she's heroic. Yeah, she holds her own.
Yeah, but it's funny though that you say about how Elizabeth should be a Disney princess, because a lot of the Disney princess criteria is like the underwritten, unspoken rule that it's about money. It's about how much money the films make. So if the film doesn't do well, they don't get to go into the Disney clique of princess. But Pirates of the Caribbean made a lot of money, I think, didn't they? Especially in the whole franchise.
Yeah, that's the one statistic I don't have. But guys, it made a buckload of money.
Yeah.
It definitely saved the pirate-themed films. Like, they weren't being made. Up until Pirates of the Caribbean, they were not being made because they just had fallen out of favour. They weren't popular anymore.
I seem to remember there was a film, I think it was called Cutthroat Island.
Yes.
About in the 80s, I believe. And I think it had Gina Davis and Emilio Estevez. I could be wrong. I'm probably just making it up from a dream. But didn't that kind of kill off the pirate genre quite savagely, because it just did so badly?
Yeah.
And it was really, really cheesy. But yeah, so I think it did a massive favour for that genre, for the adventure genre in all, I think, really, because it was pretty cheesy, wasn't it? It sort of had a bit of a resurgence in the 90s, but I think everyone sort of thought it was a little bit naff, didn't they? But yeah, so I think yes, Elizabeth should be a princess.
So Elizabeth should definitely be in the Disney sorority. We'll call it sororities. I like the idea of them being like mean girls on campus. Oh, what film am I thinking of? Oh, do you know what? I'm thinking of Sorority Row, which is a horror film, but I shouldn't be putting Disney princesses in horror films.
No. They can be like Buena Vista Delta.
But let's move on to some of the villains in the cast, and let's talk about Jeffrey Rush as Captain Barbossa. Now, when it comes to Jeffrey Rush, my film knowledge begins and ends with Pirates of the Caribbean, I'll be honest.
Same.
I know he was in A King's Speech, but that film is dead to me. We won't go into that.
No, we'll be here all day.
Yeah, but Captain Barbossa, and just a heads up to everyone listening, we will be spoiling the rest of the franchise, because I think it's impossible for us to talk about this film without talking about how it foreshadows and also how the characters go on to have a fully rounded arc. But if you're listening to this, you already know that Barbossa dies at the end. Spoilers.
No way.
Never. But of course, we know he comes back for the sequels right at the end of 2, and he's in it until the very last film.
I want to talk about that later on as well, because that is a point for me.
Yeah, but we definitely will. But when it comes to Barbossa, I remember when I first watched the film and the subsequent watching when I was younger, Barbossa I always hated. Now, I know it sounds a bit redundant to say, because obviously you're meant to hate him, he's a villain. But the other films definitely do shadow how I see him now.
Right.
So when I watch the film now, I think to myself, you are a bad guy, but you're not a bad guy. Like, I don't see what makes him any worse than Jack. I know he murders people. Well, yeah, but then all pirates murder, they pillage, they plunder.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I watched it now and the whole franchise as a whole, Barbossa, he's one of my favourite characters, and I will get into it later on, but I do hate what they do with him towards the end of the franchise. The core trilogy I love. So 1, 2, and 3 was the core film that Gore Verbinski, am I saying that right? The director?
Yeah, that's right.
He directed all 3. So that was the trilogy done, in the can. And then they obviously followed it up with 4 and 5, and they were going to do a 6, I assume, for another trilogy, and it didn't work.
It's a bit like Star Wars, really, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, but Barbossa, like I said, I don't think he's a bad guy.
Well, he is in the... Like you said, he is in the... He obviously leads the mutiny and everything and screws Jack over. But you know, they're all a crew. It's not as if they weren't all complicit. And like you said, they are all pirates. So what are you going to do? Call a spade a spade.
But now I've said that, I just realised, well, he does send Bootstrap Bill down to Davy Jones's locker.
He does, but I mean, do you think Jack Sparrow's squeaky clean?
No, he's definitely not. And part of the plot for like Salazar's revenge, you realise that the things that Jack does along the way, it has consequences. It does screw people over. And you do see that in the core trilogy as well, like even in this film.
It's more to do with his womanizing, isn't it, in the first film, I think.
Yeah, but another interesting character that I've always, I'm still undecided how I feel about him, because I love the actor, Jack Davenport, but Commodore Norton, I just find so just there. He's so like...
He's the kind of, he's the fall guy, isn't he? He's the romantic fall guy.
Yeah.
Like there is in every romance, there's got to be someone in the way, and he happens to be in the way.
And I don't agree with Jack at the end when he says to him, I was rooting for you the whole time.
That's one of my favourite bits.
Yeah.
I was rooting for you. I don't know, I do like Norrington in that I do feel kind of sorry for him, because despite him fancying Elizabeth being slightly pervy, it's a product of the time, isn't it? In the same way that Jack and Barbossa are, you know, horrid pirates, but not bad guys. He wants to marry the governess's daughter, which is gross to us.
Yeah.
But in the time, it would have been very normal, wouldn't it?
But on that note, let's get into the start of the film, because what you brought up is really, really pertinent to what I want to talk about. So we open up the film with a gorgeous misty shot of the ocean, and we see the ship that Elizabeth is on. She's singing away her little yo-ho shanty. We get introduced to Governor Swan, Commodore Norton, and Josamee Smith. Gibbs, not Smith. Gibbs.
You're thinking of Smee.
Yeah, I definitely am. But how old is Commodore Norton in the beginning? Because that's what I want to ask. Because doesn't this guy effectively want to marry Elizabeth when she's, barely 16 when we meet her later on?
I would guess, well, considering he seems to not be like a deck boy, he's been promoted to a fairly high rank by that point. So I'd assume early 20s, I guess.
And I don't know this for sure. I was under the impression that, you know, the wigs that they wear, because they wear wigs back in the day.
Yeah.
Because he's wearing a brown one, and then later on he's wearing a white one.
Yeah.
And I know it is ranking, because you know how like in the UK, judges will wear the grey wig or white wig to show power, because they're like top.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I also think it's also related to age as well, because if you think about how you'd be a lot older to be more established, so therefore the whiter and greyer the wig would get.
Yeah, generally.
I would think he's like, I do agree. I think he's probably 20s or like late 20s, early 30s. But then by the time we meet him, he's like well into like 40s.
I don't know. I'm assuming that she's around. Oh, I think they do say in the film. Wasn't she about 10 or 11 when she meets Will?
So yeah, that's what I'm so confused by, because like all I can think of is that she's, I don't know. All I can think of is she's definitely prepubescent.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Probably on the cusp. On the cusp, I'd say.
Cusp, yeah. But
it's still not okay.
It's not okay.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to bring up, because so we get introduced to Josamee Gibbs, who is played by Kevin McNally. Yeah. Who, again, like Jeffrey Rush, my knowledge of his film career begins and ends with Pirates. But what a career to have on your resume, though, Pirates of the Caribbean. He might disagree if he's not working now, but but I think he's working now. Good on you, McNally.
He's probably still playing Pirates.
Probably. Probably somewhere. He's probably at Disney now, like playing the character.
He's probably on the ride.
Aye, Jack. Definitely is. But now I was instantly mistaken, because this is the only time I actually thought to myself, hang on a minute, Gibbs knows Elizabeth knows Gibbs, yet they don't mention it later on. Now I am wrong, because I realised, because it only just occurred to me on my recent rewatch that this happens, but then they meet later on and Elizabeth is like, Mr. Gibbs? She recognised him, but he doesn't acknowledge her whatsoever.
No.
So either she remembers him and he doesn't remember her, because because the relationship he has towards her is not someone that I would think would be someone that knew her when she was younger. Do you see what I mean? Like,
And they seem fairly maybe not close, but in the beginning, he kind of has that, beloved uncle type vibe with her, doesn't he?
yeah.
So it is bizarre, but you never know. Maybe something went down between the governor and him.
But so she's singing that Yo Ho Shanty, which I like. That's another question I have for you actually, Jess, because you normally are quite up on this. The sound design in this film to me is flawless. I love how we get to the opening and they have her singing the sea shanty. And you have the underscore accompanying her is so creepy and so slow. But is it Hans Zimmer? Do you know?
There's a lot of controversy around this because I believe there was another composer who. Oh God, what was his name? Sorry, Mr. Other Composer, I can't remember your name. But he did the kind of basics of the score, as far as I know. And then Hans Zimmer kind of jumped in at some point, kind of towards the end. So he gets the credit on the billing, but it was more of a collaboration. Which is why it doesn't, because I've always thought this, because you know how most composers have a kind of signature sound?
Yeah.
You can always tell when it's like James Horner or somebody. But bless his soul. God rest his soul. But Hans Zimmer also has an incredibly recognisable sound. So when you say that he did Pirates of the Caribbean, you're like, really? Because it doesn't sound like him.
No.
And that's why. It's because I think he just kind of tweaked it towards the end.
Because he is the guy that always pops up in my head when I think of a composer. I always think Hans Zimmer straight away.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure. That's why I was listening, thinking, could be, but it doesn't sound like it should or would be. Because I recently watched Mission Impossible 2.
Yeah.
I know it's quite random. I could be wrong now, but I believe Hans Zimmer's on that. And it doesn't sound anything like him.
A lot of it is just to do with who gets credited. I mean, what it's like. Do you remember when I told you we went to go see The Snowman and the editing was horrendous?
Yeah.
But at the end, when it said that it was, what's her name? Velma, the chick that did all the editing with Scorsese.
I'm sure she doesn't want the credit for that film, but...
No, well, exactly. And I thought that's really... Oh, Thelma Schoonmaker, that's the one. Because obviously she's got, a bajillion Oscars for all of her editing with Scorsese. So when we saw it was on The Snowman, we were like, what? But when I did a bit of digging, I found out that actually she'd just been brought in the last, in the 11th hour.
to rescue it.
just to kind of, I don't know, just take a bit of responsibility for it, I guess. But I think a lot of the time in movies that happens. Well, you always get it, don't you? Tarantino will direct something, but they'll say, oh no, it was Rodriguez, and it's all about who gets credited. So I think it was probably Hans Zimmer who finished it off, but I'd say that the other bloke probably loosened the lid.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Loosened the lid, and then Hans Zimmer came along and just ripped it off.
Yeah, it was all me.
I imagine he walks in, just sort of scores it, and just sort of mic drops. You're welcome.
Yeah. He probably adds his usual little broom.
Yeah.
There, I'm done.
So before we move on, I just want to talk about one of my favourite lines. We have Gibbs, Mr. Gibbs, who mentions that it's bad to have a female on board.
Yes.
It's a bad omen. those breasts, it gets you into trouble.
Don't they just?
Yeah. And then we meet Governor Swan for the first time, and he tells Mr. Gibbs to stop talking about this, as I'm concerned the effect this subject will have on my daughter. And then we have a young, precocious Elizabeth cut in and go, actually, I find it all fascinating. And then one of my favourite lines in the whole film is Governor Swan. His comeback is so burn on you, bitch. He's like, yes, that's what concerns me.
And he's not wrong.
He is not wrong. But to be fair to him, he's this well-to-do guy who's trying to raise his daughter on his own. So he's a single dad. And then she ultimately ends up with Spyro at the end of the film.
Well, it's probably why him and Gibbs had a fallout, and that's why she doesn't know him when she's older. You shan't be pillaging my child. Norrington could do it, but you can't.
Although I don't blame him for that. Would you want Mr. Gibbs as a son-in-law? No. So we have this exchange. We hear about how it's a bad omen, and then literally right after that, we sail into a shipwreck, an aftermath of a battle that's just taken place, and Elizabeth spots Will, and it's Destiny. She's the first one to spot him, and it's basically her keen eyesight that is the reason why he's still alive today.
Yeah.
And so he gets pulled on board, and Elizabeth noticed the Aztec gold, which is it around his neck?
Yes.
And she basically steals it off him.
Do you know what's just occurred to me?
What's that?
Elizabeth is the reason that the curse is broken, because Will's the only one left, right, with Bill's blood.
Yeah.
If he had died that day in the water and she hadn't spotted him and rescued him, they'd have had no hope.
Yeah, because they wouldn't have found that at the bottom of the sea.
No.
Wow. Yeah, you're right.
Poor Elizabeth. She didn't get enough credit, did she?
So Elizabeth gets no credit for that, but then also she basically just robs a young boy from his only treasure sent to him by his dad.
Well, isn't that because she doesn't want them to know he's a pirate?
Yeah, but that never sits well with me, because I think to myself, well, just because this young boy has some gold, he's instantly a pirate.
But it's pirate gold.
I suppose maybe I'm just thinking of it too much of like a modern eye. I think to myself, oh well, logic dictates that, you know.
Because isn't it the gold of Cortez?
But would they know that? I know the pirates know that, but would they know that?
They probably know it wasn't local currency, and they'd be like, "Where'd you get that? You're like a 10-year-old boy."
And we do learn from the last film that they're not opposed to hanging boys.
Yeah, well, precisely. Yeah,
So
horrible that is.
She saves him from the noose.
She did. Well done, Liz.
But before I move on from this scene, do you have any more notes that we can?
I do think it's not obviously scary in the sense of like, but when I first watched it, because obviously it's completely billed as like a family adventure, it's, you know, super fun and everything, and when the first scene rolled in for me, I was like, oh, it's like dark and gritty and like nothing like Yo Ho Ho, like, and a bottle of rum.
It's really eerie, isn't it?
It's very atmospheric. Yeah, they did a really good job, I think. Even though I'm not massively keen on the child actors, but I thought it does a really good job of setting up the whole reason for Governor Swan, and, you know, how he doesn't like pirates, and it kind of builds a little bit of relationship, even though it's pervy with Norrington and Elizabeth. They probably should have left that bit out. I think it would have been a lot better for the film if they'd left Norrington out of it in the whole beginning and just had him introduced later on. Because when you see him with a child, it's like, ugh. But if you'd never seen him and Elizabeth together when she was little, you would think nothing of it, would you?
Yeah, and not to keep going on about this point that, like, you know, Norrington's old, but
He's probably younger than we are.
But this is the thing. Jack Davenport, to me, always looks old.
Yeah.
It's just he has that face.
He has a face, yeah.
Like he definitely... I don't think he was that old when he was filming Pirates. I would say probably mid-30s, early 30s.
When I was little, I say little, when I was 13, I actually thought that was his real hair. You know, when they got the wigs on, when like Jonathan Pryce and Jack Davenport got the wigs on.
No, but so did I.
I used to be like, oh my God. And do you know what? I must have completely mentally blocked out the scene, you know, where the hand like nicks his wig, you know, and Jack escapes.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's not really his hair. But yeah, I always thought, oh my God, his hair is horrible. He's so old. But he wasn't. He's like 40 something.
But I'm still like half, because when I was watching this first time, I was convinced that it was his hair in the first scene and then it was a wig in the others. But I don't think that's the case. I think I'm right. It's to do with the whole, you know, seniority thing. So he has.
I think you are right. Yeah.
But yeah, let's jump into the. I say modern setting, but they jump from
present day
to the present day. Yeah, we'll jump to the present day, and we have the brilliant cross-cut of a young Elizabeth watching the Black Pearl, the back end of the ship, sailing off through the mist. And that's the first sort of sight that we get of the Black Pearl. But at that point, we won't know that is the Black Pearl. Like, all we know is that it's a pirate ship. Because I don't know about you, but I still wasn't sure what the Black Pearl was when I first watched this. Like, I didn't know if it was a literal Black Pearl. I didn't know it was. I certainly didn't know it was a ship.
No.
So we
Not
know
when you first watch it.
No. So all we know is that it's a pirate ship, and then cuts from her younger self to Keira Knightley waking up in present day, shall we say, for the setting. And sorry to harp on about this age thing, but we get this horrible exchange between her and her father. She's getting ready after she's picked up the Aztec gold that she's hidden in her drawer, put it around her neck and hidden it in her ample bosom. We get this horrible exchange where she's getting ready. This maid is putting on this horrible corset on, which is all the fashion in London, apparently. And Governor Swan's going on about how Norriton's going to be there. Oh, don't you like Norriton? And he says to her, he fancies you, you know.
It's very reminiscent, actually, isn't it, of that scene in Titanic? They use the corset as a metaphor for, you know, the social suffocation.
Yeah,
really well, don't they?
Especially when that is what saves her at the end. You know, not the end, when Jack saves her from falling into the sea. It's only when he rips her corset off that she finally can breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah, they love the whole corset thing for like constraining women.
I'd love one. I'll have one. Kira, give me a corset.
So we quickly move on from that horrible scene where basically Governor Swan's trying to pimp out his daughter. And we have the proper introduction to Orlando Bloom's Will Turner waiting in the foyer at the bottom of the stairs. And he's looking at this lovely... It's not a candelabra, but it's like a candle mounted on the wall.
Yeah.
And it's so adorable because he actually touches it and breaks it. And I can so relate to that. Like, I'm often touching things I shouldn't and breaking them.
No comment.
But this is the point I wanted to get into. So, because you mentioned earlier how Elizabeth she really owns herself. And I equated that to the fact that she's quite a modern voice in this film. And what I mean by that is you would assume the way she acts, especially when we see her, she meets Will at the bottom of the stairs and she just lights up and she totally forgets herself. And Will addresses her as Miss Turner. And she's like, "Oh, I told you, Will, you know, you call me Elizabeth." Yeah. And he's like, "Well, once again, Miss Turner." Oh. He's doing... I see it as in, yes, he's shy and he knows his place. Like, you know, he's just a blacksmith. But I also see that in terms of Will is a character of the time, whereas Elizabeth isn't.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe that a character of the time, the way she would have been brought up, like, yes, she would have that personality of being outgoing, but she still would have conducted her in the way that she should, because that's what she would know. She wouldn't know any different. She wouldn't see that women, you know, could speak out like that.
Right, yeah.
So I find it really refreshing, and that they've given Elizabeth a modern voice in a film that's set when it is. So it's like the 1700s, I think it's meant to be, because it's the golden age of piracy, so it's around about that time.
I think it's quite sweet, really, because, like, the governor, he obviously has his job to do and he needs to raise her in the way that, you know, is, like, socially acceptable. But you never really see him properly, like, have a go, do you? He's quite soft with her. Yeah,
he's often like, he's that character, you know, smacks his forehead and goes, "Here we go again."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Go, "What you like?"
Yeah, like he's quite progressive in, I suppose, being a single dad. Like, you'd expect him to be, like, properly overprotective, and he is to a certain extent. But I like that they kind of went away from, like, the nasty dad in the way of her love sort of thing.
Yeah.
That you have it quite often in not necessarily Disney, but in the kind of period it's set. Especially so often for them to be repressed by their parents, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I don't feel like she is. I feel like she's quite free to do what she wants.
Yeah, I agree. And I like how her modernism, I feel like it elevates the film overall. I suppose what I'm trying to say is, if she behaved the way she should, it would almost be like it would be a period piece.
Yeah.
Other than a Disney swashbuckling adventure, because they often have to be outside of that period to make it relatable to an audience watching it in a modern setting.
Yeah.
So if she behaved like the prim and proper damsel in distress that she should be, as the plot dictate, she wouldn't have any character, and it wouldn't give her any agency, and it wouldn't give the film a elevated feeling. Which goes back to what I was saying about how, well, what you as well was saying, how she almost grabs the role and runs with it and sort of says, you know, I will be relevant to this story.
Yeah.
Which I love, because it's just her character, and also that's how her emotions and how her thoughts and feelings affects the plot.
I feel like if she if she had been kind of what you'd expect her to be, like prim and proper and la-di-da, she'd be quite unlikable, really. Given the kind of kookiness of all the other characters in the film. If she was the stick in the mud, kind of just going, oh, poor me, save me, everyone would be like, oh, God, what a drip.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But, like, when you see her interaction, like, especially that scene when they're on the island, when she's, like, properly telling Jack what's what and not doing what he tells her and drinking all his rum.
Yeah.
Like, that makes her quite likeable, I think. I'm not a massive fan of Keira Knightley, to be honest, in general. I like her, but I'm not keen on acting usually. But I do like her in this. I think she's quite fun, actually.
Yeah, and I think what I like about it, I think it's a strong introduction to her character as well as the other characters in the film. Because this whole opening part of the film on Port Royal, we've been introduced to the core trio that we're going to have to follow. Put up with. Well, we have to put up with Elizabeth in the second film. I think she becomes a bit whiny in the second film.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's a strong introduction to her and to also Jack. We immediately see atop of this mast that we assume is connected to a grand, fabulous ship looking all piratey, and then he jumps down and it's a little dinghy, basically.
Isn't it sinking?
And he's like bailing out the water, trying to keep it afloat. And I think that's just a perfect metaphor for who Jack is and what he represents. Like Jack believes that he is Captain Jack Sparrow, scourge of the sea.
Yeah.
When really he is
the shittest pirate ever.
Basically, yeah. I love it because you in that one shot you immediately get who his character is in just one sequence. Especially when the boat arrives at the dock and it's just basically sunk.
But he makes it in the nick of time.
Yeah, just the nick of time. And I love the guy that says to him, "Oi, you can't park that there." And it's like, well, where do you think he's going to move it to?
What I really like about him is that he can't. It's like he knows he's crap as well.
Yes.
And he doesn't care. Like I think all he cares about is the bravado and the fame.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a metaphor for like, crap reality stars these days. You know, you go on like, I don't know, Top Model and you're like, you're the shittest model ever. But you have heard of me.
Yes. And like, because it goes back to, because I read a little bit of trivia and Johnny Depp, his view of pirates is that they are the rock stars of the seven seas. And that's obviously what inspired him to play him like a bit like Keith Richards with the mannerism and that.
Yeah.
But that goes back to the point you said, like how he's trying to stay relevant. So if he sees these pirates as rock stars, as long as people remember him, he doesn't care how he remembers him, as long as they do remember him.
He's kind of like Bill Nighy in Love Actually, isn't he? I love the way as well he just treats everybody around him like they're complete idiots, isn't he? The whole way through the film. It's really quite endearing. So
we have Jack arriving at Port Royal in his classy way. And we then go to I don't know, is it Commodore getting promoted? I'm not sure. It's up at the fort.
Yes, yeah.
We basically have Elizabeth, who is all of a flutter. She can't breathe because she's got this horrible corset suffocating her. And we have Norrington, who is actually, this is quite endearing. He's trying to get the words out that he wants to marry her.
Yeah.
In his awkward way, when he tells her, "You've become a fine woman, Elizabeth." I'm like, ugh, dude, you've known this girl since she was like, ugh. But I need to stop harping on that. But anyway, long story short, he's going off on one, sort of, he's lost in thought trying to woo her. And she basically just falls right off the edge of the wall. Do you know what? It looks like a hard fall, I have to admit.
Yeah, I don't know how she survives it, to be honest.
And then we have Jack on the...
Isn't he on the Interceptor?
Yeah.
He's talking to the to those two guys.
Yeah, I call them, I don't know their names, but I call them the Navy Comic Relief.
They remind me a lot of like the henchmen in like 100 Dalmatians.
Yes. And he's talking about how he's basically going to steal the ship. He lies to them with the truth, which is a good technique for thieves. And thieves, not that I would condone criminal activity. Mm-hmm. But he basically tells them that, like, I'm here to get a ship. They get onto the Black Pearl. And this is the first mention we get of the Black Pearl actually being a ship and not a black pearl, which is what I thought it was.
Yeah.
And the two Navy comic reliefs basically say that, you know, if he was here to steal a ship, he wouldn't tell them to steal a ship. And then we get the guy saying, oh, this is the fastest ship apart from the Black Pearl. And he's like, well, it's the fastest ship that's real.
Yeah.
And then we see Elizabeth fall in the background behind them. And we get the brilliant part where Jack's like, well, you going to go in to save her then? And they can't swim.
No.
And he's like, oh, fine members of the Queen's Navy you are.
Yeah.
And he dives in after her. And we get that really cool shot where she's in the water where the Aztec gold sort of like pulsates.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, I love that shot.
It calls out to him.
Yeah. So it sends out that massive sort of ripple effect. And then we see the winds immediately change direction. So cool.
It's really cool.
What's cool about it as well is because in the shot where we meet Elizabeth for the first time, she's hidden the coin in a fake bit of her drawer.
Yeah.
And it's covered in dust. So you know that it hasn't been moved in years.
Yeah.
Like she's probably looked at it, but she hasn't moved it. So it hasn't obviously touched water. Not that it would touch water anyway, because I don't know if Elizabeth will be going swimming anytime soon.
Because like one of the things that I really like about the saving Elizabeth scene is that the only person that jumps in to save her is Jack.
Yeah.
The person that's meant to be like the kind of, not really a villain, but, you know, the nasty pirate. He's the only one out of the whole, you know, the whole Navy, the whole port that is willing to jump in and save her. Even like Norrington, even her dad don't jump in to save her, but he does.
The thing with Norrington though, like I always imagine, you know, the bit where he sort of takes off his coat and he goes to jump in and he's sort of stopped.
Yeah.
I always imagine he's the guy in a fight that's sort of like, hold me back. Like he doesn't actually want to fight or jump in. He just wants someone to appear that he wants to. And he's like, hold me back. Like no way is that dude actually going to jump in and say...
I do find it funny that when he does pull her out and saves her life, they're all just like, arrest him. It's like, like Elizabeth's the only one that goes, he did just save my life.
Yeah. And what I like about that actually, it just occurred to me, is that so we've gone from an interaction from Elizabeth to Will, and then we have immediately Elizabeth and Jack. Like she literally is the person that brings this trio together because, like you said, he's the only one who jumps in to save her.
Yeah.
And then we have that brilliant bit where he rips off the corset, and then the comic relief Navy guy says, "I'll never think to do that." And he's like, "Clearly, you've never been to Singapore."
Yeah.
And we're going to keep note of this because I realised there is so many foreshadowings to the next two films. So we have Singapore. Jack mentioned in Singapore, which is a allusion to At World's End. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say they were doing a J.K. Rowling and thinking that, you know, let's put this in here so we can mention it later. But what I like about it is that whether it's intentional or not, it definitely comes back later on.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I don't think it was intentional, but
No.
I think they were probably writing the script for the sequels, and they were just like, well, he mentioned Singapore, so let's just do it in Singapore.
Yeah.
It's been there. Yeah.
And it ties into the whole At World's End, so you can like imagine it. Because I think Asia might have been the furthest explored at that time. Would America have been discovered at that point?
I'm really bad at history.
It'd be a good one for you guys at home to look up.
Yes.
Yes. So we have Elizabeth is saved by Jack. And like you said, she's very grateful. She mentions to Norrington and her dad, you know, well, he did just save me. And then we get this brilliant exchange from Norrington where she goes, no additional shot nor powder, a compass that doesn't face north, and I half expect it to be made of wood, talking about his sword.
Yeah.
You are without doubt the worst pirate I have ever heard of. And Jack, in response, says, but you have heard of me.
I just love how it shows just how ignorant he is to the whole pirate thing. Like, you know, the compass isn't meant to point north. The shot, you know, is there for a reason. And he's just so ignorant to it all.
Yeah, no, I hadn't realised that actually, the no additional shot, because that is the shot that he's saving for Barbossa.
I think that's really quite sentimental in a horrible way.
And even back to the whole like foreshadowing, like the compass gets brought up again later on. But we know, of course, from watching the other two films, that the compass doesn't face north for a reason, because it's a magical compass basically that shows the owner their heart's desire.
You know what? There's quite a lot of magic in this film, isn't there?
Do you know what? It's so funny. Like, so I hated the second film when I first watched it.
Right.
For the longest time, I couldn't put my finger on what it was. And I actually come to the realization, I found it too magical. Magical. So we get the Kraken
Yeah.
and then we get Davy
Yeah.
Jones and all that.
Yeah.
And then I watched this today. I was thinking, but so is this film. Just that it's not as obvious.
I think, yeah, like it's more, I'd say it's more voodoo in the first one
Yeah.
rather than like magic, like people with blooming squids on their faces.
I think that's what it is. I think I felt like in the second film they just took it a step too far.
Yeah, I agree.
The whole curse is so understated.
It's very simple.
Yeah, we only see the skeletal pirates when obviously the full moon is out.
Oh man, that shot where they first walk into the moonlight under the ship.
Oh, I know.
Even though the CGI is dated now, what an amazing shot.
It still looks good. But I just want to bring up, so we mentioned earlier how Jack is quite blundering. Like he's more bravado than he is bark than he is bite, basically.
Yeah.
But I did find in this scene where he takes Elizabeth like sort of hostage for a second to save himself.
Yeah.
There is a much darker tone to him in this film than there is in the others.
Yes.
And what I mean by that, you know the bit where she's putting on his effects, as he calls them.
Yeah.
And he sort of has that, easy on the good
Yeah,
love.
yeah.
And it's so skeevy. It's
I
like,
don't know, I think it's quite sexy.
but is it because it's sexy because it's a little bit naughty and like he's a bit, but that is definitely, so he's definitely much darker in this film than he is in the rest because he becomes much more comedic and comic relief in the other films than he is in this one. Well, he is comic relief in this one, but
That's why in the second one, sorry to spoil, but when Will has a hissy fit because Elizabeth snogs Jack to get him into the Kraken.
yeah.
That's what I think in the first movie, at the beginning, it may have been plausible because Jack does have that kind of sexuality about him. But in the second film, when he starts to get all ridiculous, I don't think Will realistically would believe that she'd do that.
I 100% agree. 100%. That is the one storyline that I always thought to myself, you could have
Ridiculous.
cut this out and it would have not changed the plot whatsoever.
No.
Because
No.
you're right, I don't find it believable. Now, is it because it's Orlando Bloom that I don't find believable as being... But do you know what? I think it's all three of them. I don't believe she would fancy him,
No.
Jack, and I don't believe Jack would fancy her.
No.
Because at the end of this film, I know I'm jumping ahead again, but he tells her, I know it's a bit of a joke, but he says to her, Elizabeth, it wouldn't have worked between us. But I think he believes it.
I think I can see how Will would believe that Jack would do it, only in that Jack's a womanizer.
Yeah, true.
And he just loves the foof and he doesn't care.
Loves the foof.
Yeah.
He just wants to
I
pat the
don't think
puss.
he cares which foof it is.
No, I agree though. I don't, and that's a bit that always winds me up in the following two films. I think to myself, why would you believe this, Will? Like,
No, I think that scene is cracking where where you could just see him like, doesn't he? I can't remember, second for second, but doesn't he kind of shoot Commodore a bit, Norrington a bit of a look when she's?
I think it's the pair of them. I think it's meant to be towards Norrington and
Yeah.
Governor Swan, because Governor Swan does that whole ugh.
Yeah.
And I felt saying, you can talk, trying to pawn her off to Norrington.
That's brilliant. So what happens after that, my love?
So I was saying how it's a bit of a darker tone. It's immediately followed up by the whole escape, which is so like, I think Commodore's face at the end of it just sums up how ridiculous the scene was. Like, he obviously didn't intend any of this, yet it seems to work out for him.
Yeah.
Where he immediately grabs a rope, hits the crank, and he gets flied up into the air and he starts spinning around. And then he's like, and then I think the governor's like, shoot him!
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're just shooting and they can't hit him. They're a bit like the stormtroopers out of Star Wars, where they can never hit the target.
Yeah.
And then he sort of like slings his chains over the rope and does like a zip line towards the exit to the port and then does a runner.
And no one chases him. No one thinks to alert someone that's closer and we'll get the snipers out.
Yeah, no one thinks to find him. You've got his governor's one saying shoot him, but it doesn't say find him.
Do you know what I have actually noticed from watching a couple of like kind of action adventure sort of films in the past week? The heroes are so bumbling.
Yeah.
Like they are lucky. It never comes down to actual skill.
This is what I love about Indiana Jones, because Indiana Jones, it's all luck.
In nearly every single film, obviously there's a certain amount of experience they have, but you watch like like The Mummy. How many times
Yeah.
could Brendan Fraser have got killed in that movie?
Yeah, definitely. And it's only Evie that actually gets killed. I'm thinking to myself, but she's the one that's more sensible than you are.
I know, and it's every single it's like Robin Williams and Jumanji, and which kind of makes you think. But I think that's intentional. I think that's because it makes them more relatable. You know, you want to think, don't you, like escapism. You think, oh, I want to be in this movie, but I don't know how. I'm not an SAS guy. I've never been trained in combat, but I could still win.
Yeah. So after he escapes, we see that his next port of call is, of course, he's going to bump into Will, because we've had Will meet Elizabeth, and then we've had Elizabeth meet Jack, and now Jack's got to meet Will. He breaks into the blacksmith shop, and that poor donkey.
Oh yeah.
And then we have this shot of the donkey in his eyes going.
Sorry, no animals were harmed in the making of this film.
So Jack basically hides when Will walks in, and he notices the blacksmith, who I assume is his surrogate father.
I'm not really sure. You know, he doesn't seem to have much he doesn't really reference him much, does he? He does all the business. It seems like he's just drunk and just always.
What I always imagine is that it's not his adoptive father, but obviously when he was saved and taken back to Port Royal, I imagine that he became just a ward, you know, like an apprentice to this blacksmith.
Yeah, but there doesn't seem to be much of an emotional. I mean, he never once references him, does he?
No,
I think.
I mean, all he says is he walks in and he's drunk and he goes, "Where I left you," to the and then he's like, "But not where I left you," to the poker.
Yeah.
At the hot poker. And then we have the two of them meeting. Will mentions that he heard that Jack saved Elizabeth's life, although he's not thankful either.
No. Jack never gets any credit.
He didn't have to go out of his way to save this woman that he hardly knows. Well, doesn't know at all.
He might have wanted her food though.
Yeah, probably. And then we get the talk between them is centered on Jack mocking him.
Yeah.
And we get this eunuch joke brought up for the first time where he says, "Oh, you're not a eunuch, are you?" And looks down at Will's nether regions.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to bring up eunuchs for the listeners, and also Jess. Like, do you know what a eunuch is? Because when I was younger, I always thought eunuch was a reference to gay.
It's when they don't have any bits in it.
Yeah, so I looked it up, and the joke is actually so inappropriate, more than I actually thought, especially in today's terms. I don't know if it would fly in today's terms, but eunuchs traditionally appeared throughout Mediterranean history, but also in Asian dynasties, where they were used in court as bedchamber slaves, basically.
Oh. Is it bad? I find it quite lightheartedly funny.
No, it definitely is. It definitely, the thing is, what saves it is the delivery. Like, it's meant to be like, "Oh, you're not a eunuch, are you?"
Yeah, like, where's your willy?
I'm not offended, and I don't think Jack would mean it that way. And especially, it's obviously a joke of the time.
I think it's one of those things where the joke has to be taken at face value. If you read too much into it, any joke is offensive, isn't it?
On the face of it, the joke is meant to be, you can't woo this girl. You're not a man.
Well, masculinity is a massive thing, isn't it? Like,
yes, but I think it helps the fact that Will is straight. Is coded as being straight. Like, he is obviously, because I don't get any allusions to the fact that he might be gay, bi, or anything like that.
Well, he's quite camp, isn't he?
But he is so innocent. So I take that as in, like, at face value. So if he's so innocent, especially like young and naive, I take it at face value that, oh, he fancies Elizabeth, therefore he's straight, therefore he is in love with her. Because he doesn't seem to have eyes for any other women, unlike Jack. So I think because the joke is aimed at Will, it's less harmful, because I fundamentally think that he's 100% straight, so naive that he's making a joke at the situation that he can't woo this girl, not because he is effeminate.
Yes. Yeah. That's the way I read it.
Yeah. It's just I wanted to, like, have a bit of information for viewers that might not know what a eunuch is, and the more I read, I was thinking this is much more problematic.
I'm sure Captain Jack thinks it's quite funny.
Yeah.
Rather than mean.
Yeah. So we have the two of them engage in a battle. It's not really much. Well, actually, it's a bit of a duel, actually. And I read a bit of trivia that the director and the production team, they actually graded the characters on their proficiency with a sword.
All right.
Will is the most proficient at a sword. Norrington and Barbosa are equally matched, and Jack is the worst, apparently. Which I just love, this running narrative that Jack thinks that he's much more of a competent pirate than he actually is.
Yeah. He really is just bravado wrapped up into a person, isn't he?
But I think he holds his own more than anything. We do see actually that he wins his battle because he cheats. Because we have that whole, bit where he pulls out his gun and Will's like, "You cheated." And he's like, "Pirate."
I just love the whole tone of the movie. Is like they're pirates and they pillage and plunge and stuff, but it's all very kind of like tee hee, I'm so mischievous,
Yeah.
rather than like I'm actually a bit of a see you next Tuesday.
Because he still won't shoot Will. Like, he pulls out the gun and basically kills the battle.
Yeah, you'd never expect him to actually do something terrible,
No.
would you?
And he even says, "This shot is not meant for you." And he goes to walk out the door, and then Will throws the sword and he can't get out. And then isn't the Navy basically come in and break it up, and he gets taken off to the jail, isn't he?
Yes, I think so.
So then it moves into nighttime, and we have all this horror symbology like pops up. You've seen candles being blown out, the mist rolls in.
I've always found it quite interesting in the film, for how they balance the tones of things. Like the pirates in one scene are made out to be super scary, and in the next they're like running around like like clowns.
So let's get into that. So we see Norrington, who obviously heard the gunshot, like of the cannons from the approaching Black Pearl, and tells Governor Swan to get down. And then we see these that's the best word I can think of, gnarly looking pirates getting to shore. We hear women screaming. So this is basically the plundering part, because they're looking for something.
Yeah.
And so then we cut to Elizabeth being woken up by her maid and saying, like, "You need to escape, Mom. You need to get out of here."
Yeah.
She's like, "Why?" And she's like, "You're the governor's daughter."
Yeah. Yeah, I always found that really odd. Like, when I was younger, I used to think, so what? But now, obviously, she's a trophy. She's the prize picking.
Yeah, and then we have Pintel and Ragetti.
Ragetti,
Is it
yes.
Ragetti? We have Elizabeth on the landing of the stairs, and the butler opens the door, and she's like, "No, don't open the door." And then he says, "Hello, chum," and
Yeah.
basically just shots his butler point blank in the face, which is so dark.
Yeah, it really is, Actually, no, yeah, when you think about it, like, if you watched an episode of Luther and somebody opens the door and they blast their face off, that's like, oh my God, horrendous, isn't it? But I think because there's no blood, because it's very, like, cartoony, like, slapstick, like Tom and Jerry type violence in the film, mostly, isn't it? I mean, you never really see much blood, unless they're, like, cutting the hands for the coins and stuff.
Point blank in the face, no question, he's dead.
Yeah. Well, it's just amazing because in some scenes, I mean, maybe it is more to do with the situation, but when she is hiding from them, when they storm the house and they go upstairs and try and find her, it is genuinely quite scary, I think.
No, I agree. And I know what bit you're on about. You're on a bit where he spies through the little crack in the closet, is it?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hello, Poppet."
Yeah. But in the next scene, they're like bumbling idiots. So it's like, it's amazing how they managed to, because usually when you watch a film and the tone's all over the place, it's really off-putting, isn't it? You just sort of think, oh, for God's sake, like, get some consistency.
Do you think maybe that's why critics were a bit more harsher on this film than how maybe we would be? Because the first hour is definitely all exposition. It's meeting all these characters, it's setting up the plot, but I don't think it drags.
I don't mind that, because it's good exposition. So, sometimes you watch a film and you just think, oh my God, this is just so clunky, and the exposition is just like blaring you in the face. But I feel like in this film, and a lot of Disney films actually, the exposition's done so well that you're wrapped up in the story while it's exposing. So you're not sat there thinking, oh, for goodness sake, like it's written so well.
Yeah, and often what Disney does, a lot of Disney films, they'll have the exposition and the rise in action together.
Precisely, yeah.
I think it's because often a character is already on their quest.
Yeah.
So the first film is Will's realising who he is, because a lot of the plot is wrapped around the fact that Will is Bootstrap Bill's son, it's his blood, it was his coin. So a lot of the film, we're following Will and Jack, and they're off to go save Elizabeth. But Elizabeth is the recipient of a lot of the plot explanation courtesy of Barbossa. Now, in the scene where she's bargaining to be released, it is a lot more subtle in that she says the name Turner, and you could see in his face and how the crew react.
Yeah.
That is something significant.
Well, it's funny how they assume that there's only one family of Turners in the whole world.
Yeah. I think they think because the coin called out to them, therefore whoever has it is a Turner, because they know that
Right.
Bootstrap.
Yes.
But then let's narrow down this age, so let's say, for instance, she's probably 12
Yeah.
in the first scene, or 11 or 12. I think Will and Elizabeth are meant to be 16. I think maybe Will might be a little bit older than Elizabeth.
But watching it at the time, I always assumed that she was sort of 18, 19.
So let's say they are. So if she was 12, that's like 4 or 5 years. Still, that's still a lot of time for that medallion to go walkies, basically. Like, how do they know that Will, who they assume, or a Turner, still is in possession of that medallion?
Yeah.
I know we
true.
can't get too lost in the weeds with this because obviously, like, the only way they would be able to explain it is if someone went, oh, but she might not be the Turner, but, we should take her for now.
Yeah.
So, whilst all this is going on, we see one of my 5 favourite pirates, the bomb guy,
Yeah.
with even the tips of his beard is on fire, which actually is taken from lore, from history.
All right.
Because Blackbeard himself used to have sort of like fire, like essence or something burning underneath his hat. And also he used to have like tips of his beard that used to be like smoking.
But did it not catch fire to his whole beard though?
I don't know, but like it's obviously all like lore and history. It's probably like passed down by word of mouth. But Blackbeard was less violent than what people think because he used to deal more in intimidation, and so he would like commandeer a boat and through fear, so the crew would just submit rather than fight back.
Yeah.
So that's where they got the idea from. But I love that guy because he's so like gung-ho on blowing everything up. He's like busy running around. And he also has that sort of comedic Acme type bomb in his hand, the way it's shaped.
Yeah. He's like the bomber guy in Atlantis. Hey, blow things up.
So yeah, we have the bomber guy, which I'm going to call him from now on, running around, blowing things up. And we see Will and the bomber guy sort of face off for a second, and I think he goes to then attack him, but then he gets hit by a frying pan from behind. It's like a faceless attack because we don't actually see who hits him.
Oh yeah, you don't, do you?
No, you just see this flying frying pan,
A flying frying pan
coming off camera that smacks him and does this really really comedic like fall as well. Like his sort of face goes, and he just
yeah. I love how when Jack's in prison. And he knows the Black Pearl is there.
Yes,
the bit
from the sounds, yeah.
Yeah.
And we should actually talk about that bit actually, because so during the attack, we do see a shot of Jack talking to these other prisoners, these other pirates. They get released because there's like a hole in the wall gets blown out.
Yeah.
And then we see 2 people from the Black Pearl crew talk to Jack, interact, and then we do learn that Jack knows them. He probably used to serve on the Black Pearl. We don't know just yet that he was captain, do we?
No, I don't think so.
Well, we can infer that he was captain because they did say that they mutinied against him.
Yeah.
So when Will comes back the next day, obviously Jack's still there. And do we find out? I think Jack finds out at this point as well that Will is a Turner.
Doesn't he say that he looks like his dad?
Yes, he definitely mentions something to do with the fact that he's Will Turner because he knows the name, and then they break out, and then we have this brilliant shot of them underneath the boat.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, but did you notice? But the bit where Will steps in a crab trap and the the floating barrel on top is following them.
Yeah.
Did you notice? There's a quick shot of the little boy who's with the port owner.
Yeah.
But also, there's a goat in a dinghy.
Is there?
There is a goat. I'm telling you now. There's a goat in a boat. And I'm like, why is there a goat in the boat?
A goat in the boat.
But I was like, but why is there a goat in the boat? I don't understand. Did the boy put the goat in the boat?
That'd make a really good nursery rhyme.
The goat in the boat, the boy put the goat in the boat. And I was like...
Do you think he'll float?
There's hope. So we have Jack and Will in a boat under the sea. Well, there's a goat in a boat, and they jump onto it's not the Interceptor. It's the bigger of the two.
Oh.
It's the Intrep. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Because they go onto the big boat, and they jump on. Jack's all calm. He's like, "Gentlemen, we're taking your boat."
Yeah.
And then Will's like, "Aye, avast." And they all just laugh at him. And then in the next shot, we have the crew that was on the ship in a little boat, and Norriton's looking with his spyglass, and he's like, "They're taking the boat, they're taking the ship." But then it's a ship because it's not a boat, because it's bigger than a boat, because the goat is on the boat. And then Will and Jack are on the ship. Yes. So they're taking the ship. And then we see this brilliant shot of like Jack instructing Will on how to move these ropes. And I'm doing it here now, and you can't see it. But it just cracked me up because Jack looks so much like a parent going, "No, you got to do it this way. And he's miming it. And Will's like, "This."
Do you know what? I never really liked Orlando Bloom much when I was younger. But I kind of see it now. I kind of see what everyone liked about him because his acting, on the most part, is, I'm sorry, but it's so wooden.
Oh yeah.
However, there are like little sparks of genius. Like sometimes he can be really, really funny.
Hold that thought, because I know exactly what you mean, and there's a brilliant part. So Jack and Will have stolen the interceptor, because this is them basically beginning their quest to go save Elizabeth, with Jack knowing that Will is a Turner and that his blood is essential to breaking the curse. And then we have Jack explaining that Will's dad's basically a pirate, and he says he was a bloody pirate, a scallywag.
Yeah.
And then he says to Will, which is a very important part, which stayed with me, where he says to him, "Pirate is in your blood, boy. You'll have to square with that someday."
Yeah.
And that is an important part to Will's journey, because ultimately at the end, he does come to terms with the fact that his dad was a pirate and not necessarily a bad man.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to moments of brilliance from Orlando Bloom's acting. So they end up on Tortuga, which is basically this cesspool full of pirates, comedic pirates, I may add, where they're just running around shooting each other, generally being badly behaved and drunk. And we meet Mr. Gibbs, and I found it interesting because we find him in the pigsty, and that is where we ultimately find Norriton in the next film. So I find that quite funny, how two men that used to be on the Queen's Army or King's Army, Navy.
Down in the pig slot.
Down in the pig slot, basically,
Happy as a pig in shit.
So this is the biggest part of exposition, courtesy of Jack, I would say, where we have him explaining to Gibbs and to the audience that basically Will is a Turner, he's integral to the breaking of the curse, and that all they need is a crew of people who are crazy enough to follow Jack into the abyss. So we meet this motley crew. We are introduced to Mr. Cotton and his parrot, who talks for Mr. Cotton because he has no tongue. And the other standout, Jess, and I don't know whether or not you picked up on this, but we are introduced to Anna Maria, who is played by one Zoe, I can't say the surname, Jess.
Saldana.
Because I always want to say Saladana. But yes, this is pre-Guardians of the Galaxy, pre-Avatar Zoe. I liked this character, but maybe because I like this character because I know it's her.
Fun fact, Zoe Saldana was in Crossroads. You know, the Britney Spears.
No.
Yep. Yeah.
Good for her. She's gone through so many duds to get to where she is now.
Yeah, they should make a film about her.
And we get this brilliant... Because basically, the ship that we see Jack in at the beginning was hers. He stole it from her.
That's right. And sunk it.
And then Will sort of negotiates for the fact that the boat they've just stolen is the one that Anna Marie can have. He's like, you can have a bigger ship, a better ship. And Will's like, that ship. And Jack's like, that ship. And then so they all agree to join the crew, and once again sexist Mr. Gibbs says, it's bad luck to have a woman on board, and then Chuck's like, it'll be worse luck not to. And he's looking off just off camera, and I can only assume this was a ad-lib by Will and Gibbs, because Depp walks away and the two of them sort of look off into the distance to say, what is he looking at? And of course we know it's just another one of his, mannerisms, because he's so like out there.
Yeah.
But I think that points to Orlando Bloom has some comic gems at times.
Yeah. But do you know what? I'd love to see him come back in a comedy film. I think he'd be fantastic.
Yeah, because he had a small part in, is it The Three Musketeers? It was the one which was done by the director of Resident Evil. It was kind of like
yeah, he was in that, wasn't
he played this really kind of campy villain. He was good, but I think it was almost with the fact that because his character was just so ridiculous anyway, that he was ridiculous. I don't think it was anything to do with his acting.
I haven't seen that one. I didn't really want to.
It's not great. It's not worth it. So moving on, we go back to Elizabeth, and we go back to what I mentioned briefly earlier, which is Barbossa is always the facsimile for a lot of the plot explanation. He explains to Elizabeth and to us that the cursed gold of Cortez, which is the Aztec medallion that Elizabeth has, is what has caused them to basically become the walking dead. And then we see when Elizabeth tries to escape, she stabs Barbossa in the chest and she runs out, and the moon comes out and it shows the crew for what they really are. And they're just basically walking skeletons. And we have this kind of like what I referred to as a musical bit, where if it's in a musical, this is where you'd put the song.
Yeah.
Because we have like Elizabeth running around the ship, meeting various bits of the crew, screaming in a lot of it, and then she ends up sort of on this big sheet and they fling her into the air, and it ends with Barbossa sort of saying, we are nor dead nor living, and he pulls out this bottle and drinks it, and it all goes through his rib cage.
Yeah.
Which is really shoddy CGI when you look back at it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. But he has this great line when he says, "You better start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner. You're in one."
That is classic.
Yeah, that is a great line, and that is a line that they use on all the trailers as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but before we move on, I just wanted... So the ending to this scene is hilarious, though. So she runs in, I think she just goes under the stairs and sort of cowers in fear.
Yeah.
And he basically sort of smashes the bottle and says to the crew, like, "Get back to it," or something. I don't know if you noticed this, Jess, but there's this shot, and there's this pirates, because they're all skeletons at this point.
Yeah.
So it's all CGI. And there's this shot, the pirates start sort of like getting back to the business, but there's this one pirate right at the front. It sort of like moves one way, decides better of it, and then moves the other way, then moves back again. Looks like a chicken with his head chopped off. And it's really funny because he's a skeleton. So you just see a skeleton going, "Oh, which way am I going?" It's almost like they filmed it with, like on a green screen with people that dotted clothing on, and one of the extras didn't know which way he was going. When you go back and watch it, everyone who's listening, like, take a look, because he's definitely right at the front, and it just takes away from the scene a little bit, because I think it just cracks me up.
So you got a goat on a boat and a headless chicken.
A goat on a boat and a headless chicken.
That's a shit farm, isn't it? I do like that scene though, because even though Elizabeth is running around screaming her head off, it is the only scene where she does sort of seem very like, damsel in distress.
Yeah.
But wouldn't anyone be? I mean...
Oh yeah, I would be terrified if because obviously from her point of view, pirates is obviously exist in a world where magic and that is real. Like, so if we believe that we exist in a world which doesn't, which I'm not 100% sure we are, I would be terrified if I just found out that, ghosts, well, like Walking Dead were real.
Yeah.
Like, these people who are like, I would be scared as well.
That's the thing, because I was only complaining to Rich the other day about when you watch a movie and something kind of, becomes apparent to a character and they just accept it like, oh, okay. Like when, like in a ghost story and they see a ghost and they're like, oh, okay, ghosts are real. Most people would freak out.
But it's the same thing like what you just said, but in the opposite direction. Like, if you saw something that was otherworldly, yes, you might understand what it is because you are familiar with film and TV, like, and supernatural. You would question it though. You would be like, nah, that's not real.
But like, if you think about, in their situation in 1700s, they haven't seen any films with ghosts in or...
No, and I think she reacts accordingly. Like, she says to him, like, because obviously, like she said, "I hardly believe in ghost stories anymore, Barbosa." Yeah. Like, because obviously she was told ghost stories when she was younger, because stories.
Yeah.
But she's older now, she doesn't believe in them, so the world is what it is. So the fact that this guy is like, there's a curse, it's like, pull the other one.
Get out.
So jumping ahead, we are arriving at the Isla de Muta. We have this brilliant shot of Will and Jack's boat going through a grave, basically, because it's all these boats that have just been like smashed against the rocks. But it's this brilliant shot where they knock the mast and it falls through the water from underneath. But you see all these like outlines of hammerhead sharks.
Oh, it brings a tear to one's eye.
And what I didn't want to mention earlier is that I find hammerhead sharks the most terrifying out of all of them. I know we've got great whites, which obviously Jaws, but the way they look to me is so intimidating.
They are scary, but you know what? I'm not actually that afraid of them because their mouths aren't very big.
Oh, are they not?
No, not really. If you look at it. They can't open their jaws very wide.
Ah.
So actually, you'd probably be all right
if I was to go swimming in like the Shipwreck Cove, I would be fine.
Yeah, but maybe just don't go swimming in shark-infested waters.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
As a general rule of thumb, don't go swimming in shark-infested waters.
Just don't.
It's not worth it. Oh, so we have Gibbs tell Will about the mutiny and the marooning, which Jack suffered at the hands of Black Pearl and the crew. We hear that Barbosa was his first mate and that he took control of the ship. I assume marooned Jack on his own, because that's what we learn later, that he was marooned on his own.
Yeah.
I can only assume that Bootstrap Bill was the only one that was in his defence.
Yes, that's why they...
Yeah, with Gibbs saying that it didn't set well with Bootstrap, and that he was strapped to a cannon and left for Davy Jones's locker, basically, which ties into, obviously, the next film. And then he goes on to the marooning, and... we have this brilliant line from Will. He says, what did he use for rope? Because Gibbs says that he waded out into the waters and waited there for 3 days while all manner of sweet sea creatures swam around him. And he roped together a couple of turtles and swam to shore. And Will's like, well, what do you use for rope? And then Jack is standing behind him and he's like, hair from my back. which we'll learn later on this was a complete lie, but it just adds to the mystique, which is Captain Jack Sparrow.
I like to just pretend that was a real story.
So Will and Jack have arrived at Isla de Muerta, and at this exact moment, we have Barbosa with Elizabeth in this really impressive looking set, I would say. And I this goes for a lot of Pirates of the Caribbean. I know they use CGI for the skeletal parts, but I could be wrong. But a lot of it is filmed on set, on location, and on, I assume, studio sort of like tanks.
Yeah, I'm assuming so.
This cave is obviously a set, and I think it works for the better, really, that it looks so physical. I always thought to myself that would make a really good, like, sort of water park attraction. You know,
Oh, yeah.
could you imagine, like, how good that'd be for kids, like, to go there and, like, obviously it'd be a bit slippy because of the rocks, but...
Well, they'd make it all safe, wouldn't they, I suppose? Health and safety.
So Barbosa is trying to break the curse because he believes that Elizabeth is a turner. He cuts her hand, puts the gold in her hand, and then drops the blooded medallion into this chest, thinking it's going to break the curse. So Elizabeth is quite shocked because she was like, "Is that all you need?" And he's like, "Waste not, want not," which which adds to this credence that, you know, pirates are more mischievous than they are, you know.
Well, I'd think it was more along the lines of, now we can pillage you.
Oh my God, I did not take it like that, but yes, I think you might be actually more right on that.
I thought that was what he meant. Lovely.
Whilst this is going on, we've got Will and Jack who have infiltrated the little gathering of pirates and they're watching. The curse doesn't work, or they're not sure it doesn't work. They're only sure it doesn't work until Pintel speaks up and says, "Did it work?" And then Barbosa summarily shoots him in the chest.
As you do.
As you do. And Pintel's like, "He shot me." And then Barbosa totally freaks out. And Elizabeth has this shit-eating grin on her face while all this is happening. I don't know if you noticed. Barbosa turns to her and it's like, "You, what was your father's name? Was it Turner?" And Elizabeth has this shit-eating grin and she's like, "Swan." And he like just backhands her. Backhands her. She goes flying down the back of this mount of gold, knocked out, and the medallion's right by her head.
Yeah.
And then we see Will emerges from the water beside Elizabeth like a beautiful mermaid.
Yeah.
Merman.
Man.
And he grabs her face and she's sort of like all shocked. He's like, "Shh." Grab the medallion and they sort of like scarp her off. The crew sort of start to turn on Barbosa. He's like, no, we'll drain her all, and turn to find that she's gone. They all freak out, and then Jack wanders into shot, half out of it. They're all sort of confront him because he's got one of the oars, and and Will and Elizabeth had taken all the oars with them. Smart. I wouldn't have thought of that. So they think Jack did it, and then they're all confronting him, and Jack's sort of out of it, and he's going, "Pale, pule, pale, pule, pale." And then Pintel's like, "Pale?" He's like, "Yes, pale."
Do you think he does that on purpose, or do you reckon it's because he's like been knocked out though? Because I think he's playing with them.
I think it's a bit of both. Because he walks in the frame, and they go, "You're alive," and he looks and goes, "Sorry," goes to walk off. I think that's him knocked out, and then when they confront him, he's sort of like stalling for time.
Yeah.
Because when Pintel says, "Curse whoever came up with the parlay," and he goes, "I believe it was the French."
Yeah, which it is, isn't it? Because it's parley is French for to talk, isn't it? To speak.
Well, there we go. I've been edumacated there.
Every day's a school day.
Barbosa takes him back to the Black Pearl. They catch up with Will and Elizabeth and the rest of the crew, who agreed to leave because Pirates Code is, you know, if a man falls behind, he gets left behind. And we have this brilliant chase shot of the Black Pearl gaining on the crew, which is manned by Will, Elizabeth, and Mr. Gibbs. And he says Smee again. It's because he looks like Smee. He does
look like Smee, yeah.
They ultimately are captured, commandeered by Barbosa. And in the ensuing fight, Will becomes trapped below deck, which is slowly filling up with water. And he's left for dead. Jack, the rest of the crew, and Elizabeth are taken onto the Black Pearl, and they basically blow up the Interceptor. So goodbye, Interceptor.
Bye-bye.
Long shall she sink.
They should have had a goat in that boat.
If Will had a goat in the boat, underneath, below deck.
Then he would have floated.
I do find the fact that he is under the deck, gets blown up. He swims very quickly to the ship and pulls himself up.
Yeah, he really does. He's a Superman.
We have Elizabeth, the crew, and Jack on the Pearl, and Barbossa is negotiating with them, I think, for Will, and the medallion, because obviously Elizabeth has a medallion. And Will pops up, looking a bit of a mess. He's just escaped from the boat, not with the goat, but... And he then negotiates for the release of Elizabeth and the crew.
Yeah.
And Jack's all like, and me.
Yeah.
But he doesn't, because at this point he's a bit, PO'd that Jack was going to betray him.
Yeah.
And he still is trying to betray him, because the plan was for exchange for, was it free passage off of the island that he was going to get Will?
Yeah.
And Barbossa's brilliant because he says to him, oh no, you only negotiated your passage from basically A to B, but you didn't negotiate where you wanted to be left off.
Yeah.
And then we see in the next shot, Will is being held with the crew and Jack and Elizabeth have to basically walk the plank, and Barbossa says to him, do you recognise the island? And Jack's like, yes. So they both walk the plank. But before Elizabeth walks the plank, we have this very pervy moment, courtesy of Barbossa, where he basically says, I be wanting the dress back.
Yeah.
She takes it off, throws it at him, and he goes, oh, it's still warm.
Yeah, but remember that they can't... Hold on a minute. That is a plot. That's a mistake. Because they can't feel warm.
Well, they can't feel anything. The bit where Barbossa at the end, when he dies, spoilers,
yeah.
He's like, I feel cold.
It's a great line.
So they can't feel anything, so you're right.
Oh well.
But maybe it's because he knows it's warm and he's just being a pervert.
Yeah, he's saying it for effect.
Yeah.
To be pervy.
So Elizabeth is the brave one, forced to jump first, which is a lot less dramatic than I always imagined walking the plank to be. Because it's like basically jumping in from a diving board, a low diving board, the lowest point on a diving board.
I don't think the actual plank walking is the scary bit. I think it's the fact that you're left in the ocean, like in the middle of the sea forever.
Oh, yeah, I suppose that's a good point.
But I suppose because they're dropping them by an island that they can easily swim to, it's not scary. But if you imagine you're in the middle of the ocean and you can't see anything,
yeah,
that'd be pretty terrifying.
That would be pretty terrifying.
Ooh.
So they're both maroon.
Burgundy.
And then Jack reveals to Elizabeth, because she's all like, how did you get off here before? And then Jack reveals last time was on the island for the total of 3 days and was picked up by rum runners as they used the island as a cachet for their rum. He's just totally trying to look for the rum, and she's all like, what are we going to do?
It's like he thinks he can live off rum for the rest of his life. Or just drink himself to death.
Yeah. So they find the rum. This is the point I wanted to bring up, Jess, because Elizabeth's deception voice is so posh. I know she's pretending that she's pretending, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But if I was Jack, I would be so suspicious because she's gone from one point not being that posh to being so... Because she goes, you are the most feared pirate on the 7 seas.
Yeah, but if you think about it, Elizabeth is naive. She doesn't know how to seduce a man.
Or how to act drunk.
Yeah, so she's winging it, really.
So the next day, Jack wakes up and he can hear smashing and burning. And then he wakes up to find that Elizabeth has smashed all the rum. And Elizabeth has basically burned it so that she can create the biggest fire that the Navy can see. And Jack doesn't believe it. He walks off just in a complete...
tantrum.
Oh, it must be so hard for you, Jack. It must be so hard. Well, it is now!
Yeah.
And then he sees the Navy literally, they're literally on their doorstep. It's not like he can see it in the distance. They're literally right there. And it always makes me laugh that they didn't see it.
I know.
So they must have been arguing for so long. And he just looks at Navy. And I think this moment is for us, really, for the camera. And he's all like, there'll be no living with her after this.
Fair, though. It's actually pretty lucky. Because I know that obviously she said that, it will create a smoke plume sort of 50 feet high.
Yeah.
But even so, quite lucky that what's it called? Oh, the Dauntless. That's what it's called.
The Dauntless. There we go.
That the Dauntless would see it, considering that the ocean is massive and they're searching all over for her.
Yeah, all I can think... But actually, yeah, you're right, because they don't know where they were heading.
Yeah.
They don't know about Tortuga, so it's not like they're not going to head in that general direction. They certainly don't know about Isla de Menta, whatever it's called. So Norton must have just been aimlessly sailing the sea, just trying to...
Hello, Elizabeth.
All I can think of is that this island might have been in relative, like close to Port Royal.
Yeah.
So they might know about the island because Jack says the rum runners would have been obviously stopped years ago because he says thanks to your beloved Norrington. So obviously the Navy would know about this island as a possible smuggling point. So they might have gone just to islands that they might know of, where pirates might have activity.
Saying that, you can't really, with an adventure film, you can't really have them sat there going,
Yeah.
la la la, twiddling their thumbs for 3 months.
But we could have had an interesting side plot with Norrington and Governor Swan trying to find Elizabeth. So like leave them sitting there for like 2 or 3 nights, then we follow them for a bit going, well, I don't know where we're going. Do you? I have no idea.
Not so fucking clear. Let's go get some rum. Oh, there they are.
So yeah, they get rescued, picked up by Norrington and Governor Swan. And this is the point where it gets a bit grody again when Elizabeth basically turns around because she knows she's not getting any joy with Norrington. She's like, they've got Will.
Yeah.
They're going to kill him. We've got to go after him. She basically turns around to Norrington, who's a total jackass at this point. When I'm not listening to you, you're a woman. You don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, oh, well, I'll marry you if you do this for me.
Yeah. But it just shows just how much she loves Will.
And also how intelligent she is. She knows that she can play him like a fiddle if she just agrees to marry him.
Yeah.
Because I have more faith in Norrington's intelligence than what the film leads you to believe, I think he knows this. So it even feels more dirty to me that he would allow herself to be blackmailed like this.
But then you could look at it on the less cynical side and say that maybe he's so desperate to have her that he's willing to, like, kind of see if this act of, you know, kindness will make her fall in love with him. You know, like, maybe he thinks, you know, oh, well, I know she fancies Will at the moment, but if I show her just how compassionate I am and everything, then maybe she'll decide, actually, he's all right instead. I honestly do think that Norrington is a lot nicer. I think he just unfortunately gets put as the fall guy because that's what the plot dictates.
Yeah.
But his actual character, if you really look at his actions, yes, he's a bit ignorant, yes, he's a bit sexist and everything, but he's not evil, is he?
Yeah, I think I'm putting more villainous traits on him than what is actually shown. So I think you're right, yeah.
In my opinion, he's like the Javert character. Because I always talk about this with Rich, and I always say, like, you know, Javert is not a bad person. He's actually just doing his job and doing what he thinks is right. It's just bad luck and bad communication that, you know, all this goes down. He's not a villain, but he's painted as it because in a film you have to have the villain and the hero. If everyone's saying, oh, Norrington's a nice guy, oh, Javert's a nice guy, it makes Valjean and it makes, like, Jack and Will look less sympathetic. So I kind of think, poor old Norrington, he needs a little fan club, bless his heart.
And he does actually redeem himself at the end of the film.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so surprised what they do with him in the second.
Yeah.
To be fair, I think you're meant to believe that Elizabeth has more agency in this scene than what he does. So, like, they ultimately go and save Will because she manipulates him into doing it, even though she has no intention. Well, I think she thinks she has to marry him at that point because she's said, and because her father, you know, wants it to happen. But she has no intention of marrying him, really. She wants to, like, you know, have a life with Will.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, but it works, and they double back to Isla de Muerta, and Jack convinces Norrington to follow his plan, and oh, will this not end well? No, because basically if Jack had his own way, Norrington and that would all end up dead.
Well, yeah. Of course.
Because it's a bit complicated, but we'll explain it out. So basically, they know that Barbossa is in the cave with the pirates with Will, and they're going to break the curse. Now, Jack, because he wants to get the pearl, he's told Norrington to wait. He'll go and get the pirates to come out. I think that's what they want. And they can then ambush them on the way out.
Yeah.
That way, killing Barbossa, the pirates, so that Jack can flee with the pearl. But because Norrington doesn't trust Jack, they end up at the opening to the cave so that he can stop basically all the pirates, including Jack. So while this is going on, Elizabeth is locked in the office. Jack is talking to Barbossa, and he's basically trying to cut his own plan, which is for Barbossa to send his crew to go kill the Navy, which are just outside on the ship, because they can't die, because they're the undead. Come back, he'll then break the curse, and Jack can take the pearl, and I think... Is it that he convinces Barbossa to follow him?
I don't think he's that keen, is he, to have them back, considering...
Oh, no, that's it. He said to Barbossa, you can have the Dauntless. That's it. He said,
Yeah,
I'll take back
right.
the pearl and you can have
right.
the Dauntless, which is the fastest ship on the ocean. Barbossa goes for it. And then we
He's all like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what Barbossa doesn't see which is what Will does, is that Jack has taken out some of the coins out of the chest. He drops it in one by one, but the last coin he slips up his sleeve. So basically, Jack is cursed.
Yeah.
Will sees this and he plays into it, which is what I love for Will's characterization, is that, he had this naive character. Now he's suddenly started picking up on the...
Yeah.
He's become more of a pirate. He's
wily.
Yeah. I love that word, wily.
Me too.
You're so wily. He picks up on what Jack's laying down, sort of basically just sort of like pushes Barbossa through more, because I think Barbossa wasn't going for it until Will sort of said, "You traitor! Jack, you traitor!" And then sort of Barbossa goes for it. And then we have that brilliant shot, which you mentioned earlier, of the pirates coming out of the darkness underneath all the ships which are outside. And they start attacking the Dauntless, where we have Governor Swan talking to his daughter outside the door, trying to say to her, "Elizabeth, you God must understand."
Yeah.
And then he goes in and she's already done a runner. She's jumped out the window and she's got her own dinghy, but no goat in the boat.
Oh,
I know. And she's rowing into the cave to go and save Will from Jack, because she thinks that he's going to betray Will in that, he's going to die, which I don't think Jack would ever do. Do you?
She hasn't got much reason to trust him, though, has she?
But I think she thinks that Jack is either going to drain him completely, like what Barbossa just suggested, or she believes that Jack will just stand aside and let Barbossa do it himself. But that's not Jack's plan, because obviously we can tell that Jack is... Obviously, she doesn't know this, I suppose. There we go. I'm getting all wrapped up in who knows what and who doesn't. But I think she thinks that Jack is a bad guy at this point, because she doesn't trust him. He's screwed over numerous people at this point.
Yeah.
But this point I want to talk about, because this is a bit that sort of I find a bit sort of confusing, because Pintel and Raggiti dress up as ladies and start rowing past Norrington.
Yeah.
Why on earth would Norrington let them go? Did you think this?
Because the screenwriter said so.
But this is a cave known to have pirate gold in it.
Yeah.
Just because they're dressed up as women, you can't tell me that he would believe that they are noble women.
Well,
just out for a jolly row.
Maybe the nobleman in him is so strong that the second he sees a dress, he's like, "Oh yes, don't mess with them."
Oh, no, you're true. It might be, don't harm women and children, I suppose.
Although, and also, I suppose perhaps it's so. Yeah, no, it doesn't add up, but because of the plot, it's a comedic moment.
I think it was just for the fact that they wanted Pintel and Raggiti not to be in the cave, because if they...
Why did you say Raggiti?
I don't know. Raggeti?
Oh, yeah. Raggiti. We can just call it that for the rest of the thing, it's fine.
I just think they didn't want them to be in the cave at the time, because they would have to be the ones that fight Elizabeth and Will.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't just stand there idly by, would they? Well, they might have, but...
Well... Yeah.
Basically, Will and Elizabeth are successful in blowing up the bomb guy, because they basically create a pirate kebab where there's two people on either side of a pole with the bomb guy in the middle. And the bomb guy, when he becomes a skeleton, obviously, he sort of like becomes see-through, I guess.
But doesn't he blow up, though? Which doesn't make sense with the... Well...
No, because what happens is when they're in the moonlight, obviously they're skeletons, and Will and Elizabeth put the bomb inside his stomach and push him out of the moonlight, so then they become human again.
But isn't it not that it's just what they appear to be? So they are always skeletons. They only appear to be human.
That's what I thought, but I think for the logic of that fight scene, they become, in a way, corporeal / non-corporeal. So, in a way, then, they probably morph. So it's like an instant morphin. So they become from looking human to looking literally skeleton.
Yeah. I prefer the other way. I agree that, obviously, with the visuals of the action, it needs to be that way. But I prefer it to be just that they appear in that way. They're always skeletons, but the voodoo magic makes it like...
Yeah, I prefer it the other way, but...
No, you know what? It must be that they actually are fleshy, because in an earlier scene, Barbossa eats an apple, doesn't he? But it doesn't fall straight through him.
No, it stays in him, yeah.
Well, we don't hear it anyway. Wouldn't that be funny if you heard a little sound effect of it going clock on the floor?
But it turns to ash, though, doesn't it? It turns to ash in his mouth.
Oh, right.
Which I wish we could would have saw, but how they were showing that. Because he could have spit it out. It could have been like a cool, like, ash coming out of his mouth.
Like tobacco.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well.
But so they die, and then Will and Elizabeth are free to help out Jack, and they do so in that Barbossa stabs Jack. Oh no, Jack's going to die. But it's pretty cool because he falls back into this ray of moonlight and you see that he is obviously cursed and he can't die. Jack then shoots Barbosa and nothing happens until we cut to Will and Elizabeth, and Will drops the medallion in the chest, and does blood come out of the bullet hole? Yeah, I think it does. It sort of pulls around his chest.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. So because nothing happens until he does that, and then then we have the last words of Barbosa, which is "I feel cold."
Oh, it's so good. It's funny because it's quite a haunting line, isn't it? Like it's quite sad, really.
Because all Barbosa wanted was
feel again.
And also, because I found it quite interesting, because on the ship, so on the Dauntless where the pirates were attacking, simultaneously you see that there's a few pirates that start dropping down dead because you assume that they either are succumbing to wounds that they had previously or they've been stabbed. Now we'll get to Pintel in a minute.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
But then there's others that once they realise that they are human again, just surrender. And then obviously we get the huzzah moment for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, to Pintel, he should have died because he got shot by Barbosa in the chest when they were testing out. Now I can let it go.
It's a movie.
It's a movie. I'm in for the ride. It's fine. I'm also confused as to it couldn't have been that long ago. Because obviously Jack was part of Black Pearl, and he, he's not that old now. But when I first watched this, I assumed that they were all dying because they were old. So I thought they were dying of old age.
Right, of course, yeah, but it can't be because
it can't be because they weren't that. Didn't happen that long ago because obviously Jack is relatively still quite young.
Which to me is a slight pothole as well, because it's inferred then that they blew all their money, right? Every single of the 888 coins, but then they spent all that time recuperating them. Are you really telling me they found 800 odd coins in the space of...
Yeah, exactly. That's why I assumed that they were dying of old age, because I thought it'd take so long for you to find that coin. And that was the one coin that they needed to find, which is also another bit of a plot point, because they obviously found out that Bootstrap sent the coin to Will. So wouldn't it have been a lot more easier to then track Will down, rather than finding... But then again... all these other pieces of coin, they might have known exactly where they changed hands.
But then money goes around like crazy.
But then if it's an Aztec coin that it's
gold,
gold,
it's not traded, is it?
They might have held on to it, like these
That's
people.
True.
And also, how realistic that this gold might not have been melted down.
Oh yeah. Oh shit, that would really fuck things up.
Yeah.
Another thing that I really love about this scene is, like, before all the shooting goes down, is the actual sword fight between Barbosa and Jack. It is so cool. I've always loved it. How, when they're like running around over the rocks and things, and they run through like little rays of moonlight.
Yeah, oh, so good.
Oh my god, like there are some shots in this movie and you can tell it's Gore Verbinski because they're just so beautiful and it's done with such care, and you really wonder why everyone says, oh, when it was being made, no one thought it would be a hit, because they put so much care into it. It doesn't strike you as one of those movies that they just churn out, like some of the Disney movies, Snow Dogs and things like that. And you just think, oh my God, how does this get made? But this has all the ingredients of an amazing film. I can't believe they had no faith in it.
I suppose we can jump to our review of the film after we do the climax. But the way it's wrapped up as well, it ends on a high note when you have Will saving Jack at his trial, and the way he sort of steps up, goes up to Elizabeth and tells her, I have and always will love you. Like he's sort of like taking command, and the way he's dressed as well. Like I always joke because he's dressed like a musketeer, and he goes on to appear as a villain in a musketeer film.
It's an unofficial sequel.
He looks so much like a sort of stereotypical dashing hero, like a swashbuckling hero. He looks like that at the end. He's almost become what he was meant to be, and it ends on a high note. It ends with like Jack being saved. Obviously have a bit of action there, and then you have Will and Elizabeth standing up for Jack, and them both taking ownership of their lives and of their destiny. And I've written the last line, the last sort of monologue that Jack has, and for me this sums up the fact that maybe if they didn't believe in what they were making, so this might be a one and done film. It ends on such a high, and it has Jack going, well, I'm actually feeling rather good about this. I think we've all arrived at a special place, spiritually, acumentally, grammatically. And he says to Norton, I want you to know I was rooting for you. Know that. And he says, Elizabeth, it would never work between us, darling. I'm sorry. And then he goes, Will, nice hat. And then it ends where it began with his classic line of when he says, men, this will be the day you'll always remember as the day, and he cuts off because he falls off the cliff.
Yeah.
And it so wraps up, and obviously we have Pearl and the crew have sort of come back to pick him up, even though they left him behind because they scarpered at the end of the conflict. So that wraps up that. He gets the Pearl back. His crew never left him, so he has a crew, almost like his surrogate family. You have Will and Elizabeth ultimately ending up together. We have Governor Swan saying, this is the path you have chosen. After all, he is a blacksmith, which is so rude. And then Elizabeth says, no, he's a pirate. And they kiss.
Aww.
So the film franchise could have ended there. It could have ended with Will and Elizabeth living happily ever after in Port Royal or going off for their own adventures. And then it ends with Jack, once again at the Pearl's helm as captain. And then he starts singing, yo-ho. And then it ends, cuts to black. And it even ends, like I said, with Captain Norton sort of looking like a good guy because he says, we can give them a day's head start. Even though he knows he ultimately has to go after Jack, he recognises what Jack means to Elizabeth, I suppose, and to Will. So he at least gives them a head start, knowing that, he's probably going to have to catch up with him and kill him.
Plus he probably needs a day to, cry. And
He goes back to his cabin, just sobs.
Oh, Elizabeth.
So yeah, that was Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. Yeah, I think it's quite a simple film, and I think that's probably why I love it so much. And I can just put on Pirates of the Caribbean and just watch it and enjoy it and just relax and have fun and know that I'm going to have fun with a well-made film.
That's the thing about it, isn't it? It is fun and it's quite light. I think the problem with the sequels is that it's just so bogged down by plot that if you're not watching it, really intently and that you're interested even more than that, you're going to end up just thinking, oh my God, make it end.
Yeah.
Whereas the first one, I find, yes, okay, it is long and it does have quite a lot of segments to it, but I think all the segments have their good bits.
Yeah.
They're all quite, I wouldn't say they're all very different, but they certainly are all entertaining.
Well, let's jump into sequel speak, shall we? Because, what you mentioned about 2 is 2 has grown on me a lot since I first watched it. I watched it 2 or 3 years after the first one. So I think I probably wasn't in the right frame of mind to be enjoying a pirate film in that stage of my life. And also at that point, I'd already watched Pirates of the Caribbean and forgotten about it, even though I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
However, when I watch it now, I appreciate a lot more for what it is in terms of motivation. It literally feels like it is the Empire Strikes Back of the trilogy.
You reckon?
Yeah, because you have Jack dying and sacrificing himself. You have Will and Elizabeth ending in a not a very nice place, relationship-wise. You've got Will thinking that she kissed Jack because she loves him to say goodbye when she wasn't. She was screwing him over. You have the guilt that Elizabeth felt because she essentially killed Jack. And then you had the villains basically were winning because they were in, Davy Jones had his heart back, which was what he was after. So it felt kind of like a downer, but I can enjoy that more now that I'm older and I can enjoy the nuance of it. I still don't think it's the best, but
with most things, I think sequels are usually a bit unnecessary, and I feel like this one especially though is unnecessary. Like you said, in the first one, it's wrapped up so nicely at the end.
Yeah.
It is a bummer. Yeah, it is a bummer. Like you watch the first one, you're like, oh, wonderful, brilliant.
Yeah.
And then it brings you in with the second and third, and it's all dark and gritty. And I know they were trying to go for something different. I respect that, but the joy of the first one.
Yeah.
Is that it's so straightforward and simple and fun. Children, adults can both enjoy it. I feel like if you sat your 12-year-old child in front of the second and third, they'd be a bit
bored.
Oh God.
Yeah. They would be definitely bored. 1 and 3 feel like a complete film because if you watch it back, it doesn't actually have that many plot points following on from 2. There is a few, but if you didn't see 2, I think you could watch 3 and not be as confused if you hadn't seen 2. It feels like a more complete film, especially in tone. So the tone of the first one was joyful, and 2 felt like, I think the adventure was that this is going to be a rough ride, guys. It's going to be a bit of a bummer at the end. Whereas 3 was wrapping up stuff. It was like, look, we're going to get to the epic battle. We're going to get. It all felt a bit more epic.
I think a lot of my beef comes down to the fact that I think how they killed off Barbossa in the first one felt so right and so poetic and sad, that when they brought him back for the other two, I know that, like, you enjoy him in the series and he's enjoyable, but for me, I just thought the whole point was that he wanted to be human, to be mortal and die, and he feels cold and he dies, and then they bring him back and it's like, well, that completely negates all the emotion that I had in the first one.
And now you've brought him up, because actually I did want to talk about Barbossa, because you mentioned him at the beginning. I absolutely agree. Have you seen the last? Because it is going to be the last Pirates film, because they're rebooting the series.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Why?
I know. Let's end that on there, because I'm not going to talk about it.
Let's not
Just
get angry.
Why are you rebooting it? So have you seen Salazar's Revenge?
I haven't yet, no. But don't worry, you can spoil it for me.
Spoilers. Barbossa dies at the end of that film.
For real this time.
For real, yeah. Because obviously there's not going to be any others, so he can't come back. But so basically, what happens is, so Free, I think he works. I think he's a charming character in Free, because I feel like he's part of the crew. He's part of the core pirates gang that you love and you like to follow, because he becomes part of it's like the Avengers. They come together. Yeah, he's like part of the Avengers in that film, and that's great. And he has a good ending. Like, fine, he ends up with the pearl. He screws Jack over. It's funny. It's hilarious. Fine. Now, my biggest gripe is 4. What they do with his character in 4, I find so egregious that I'm glad he came back for 5, because at least it redeemed his character in my eyes. Now, first of all, they give him a peg leg in 4 for no reason other than the fact that, he's a pirate, he has a peg leg. What was it? What was that, Destiny? Oh, Blackbeard be killed by a man with a wooden leg or something. Not something like that. I was thinking, I felt saying, you can't tell me you didn't do that just so that there could be
I know. So contrived.
Yeah. Now, if we had seen him lose his leg and it had meant something,
and it had been like, halfway through the film, like, event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also to make him work for the king, and for him to be all prissy and wearing that wig and the makeup, and I was thinking, this isn't Barbossa. This isn't the Barbossa that you told me that he was three films prior. He would have died fighting for his survival and freedom rather than end up in chains.
Yeah.
Now, I know they tried to tell us that he was doing it because he was trying to get the pearl back. Like, I call bull on that, because I don't think that film didn't need Barbossa anyway, by the way. He didn't have to come back for that film. They could have come up with a totally different character with a wooden leg that was meant to kill Blackbeard, and then bring him back for the 5th one. It's fine, because the 5th one, again, I have my issues with the 5th one, because I was told prior that Orlando Bloom was going to be a big role in that film. He's not.
Oh, really?
He appears at the beginning and the end. That's it.
Oh.
It follows his son trying to break the curse
to get him back.
I've only seen it once, so I can't remember that well. But there's this trident which breaks all curses ever, basically. It's like a curse breaker. He sets out with I can't remember her name, but she turns out, and you're gonna roll your eyes here. She turns out to be Barbossa's daughter.
Of course.
And then at the end of the film, he basically sacrificed his life to save her.
It's so contrived.
Yeah.
It really bugs me when family members keep popping up. It's like, they never even made mention. If he'd have had a daughter in the first one, he would have been saying, I wish that I could, feel my daughter's heartbeat again. And shit like that. But no.
And also, what are the odds that Will's son would find Barbossa's daughter that he didn't even know he had, and she didn't even know that her dad was a pirate? But it so happens in this big, 7 seas, because Elizabeth is back in England, so was her son, and he ends up, in the Caribbean, bunny ears, because you don't even know where they are. It's so, yeah. And then also the two of them brought together by Jack, because Jack bumps into one, then bumps into the other. I'm like, oh, here we go.
Oh, bumps in.
Yeah, I mean, I know Will was trying to find Jack. That was the whole point. But, anyway. But long story short, I was moaning about Barbossa. Now, he gets redeemed in the 5th one, only because he becomes the character that I've known him from the first 3. It winds me up, but...
There's no point mentioning about it, because they're done. They're done and dusted now. But... yeah, I feel like the sequels are a bit of a slap in the face to the original, because Curse of the Black Pearl is, in my mind, perfect. Like,
yeah,
I love it. I think it's fantastic. It's so pure.
And also, I don't know whether or not you may disagree, but like the first film, yes, there are action sequences in terms of like, like sort of Jack flying up into the rafters, spinning round and then zip lining. But there's no massive set piece. Like, like 2, you have the big wheel fight, on the wheel.
And that's all anyone remembers, isn't it?
Yeah.
About the second one.
And then 3, you have the big fight on top of the mast when the ships are going down the whirlpool.
I mean, that's quite cool.
That's cool, yeah. But the first one doesn't need those
No.
action sequences to be like. There's nothing. A lot of it is just character development.
It's quite subtle, isn't it?
Yeah.
All the action, actually.
It's quite quiet.
No, it's just normal. It's just pirates fighting, just on ships. It's quite...
And like 4, I love certain bits of 4, but like that film is all big action sequences, all big. Let's get to the MacGuffin, which is the Fountain of Youth, and that's it. Like I enjoyed the ride, but then at the end of it, I was ultimately unsatisfied because nothing stuck.
I think really what you can take away from it all is that if you've got kids or you want to just watch like a nice light-hearted family film, just watch the first one.
Yeah.
Forget the other ones exist and just watch the first one because you'll have a lovely time. You'll end on a high.
Yeah.
All will be well. Yo ho ho.
I agree. If you've got kids who are into adventure, is it PG?
I think it might be a 12, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I think it's more of a UK 12A. So watch it with them. So watch it with your kids because if they get scared, at least you're there. And then if they choose to watch the others when they're older, I would say hit them around about 15, 16.
Yeah.
Give them 2 and 3, 15 at 16, because they will get a lot out of it because when you're a teenager, you're looking for stuff more dark because you're broody and you've got so many issues and no one understands you.
It's true.
It's true. The films will, I think, appeal to you. And then if you want to watch the other 4, do it, but I don't think you need to.
I'd give them a miss if it was me. If I could have my time again.
But Jess, I had fun talking about one of my favourite films. All that's left for us to do is, I thought it might be a fun idea to rate the films that we review this year.
Okay.
What we do is, by the rating we give it, it'll go up onto a league board. So obviously Pirates will be on there at number 1 first, but the next film that we talk about, it might trump it, it might not. Because even though it's hard to judge films because they're different genres,
Yes.
you can enjoy a film more than one film that you saw before, if you get what I mean. We have to agree on this, though. We have to come to some sort of consensus. So I thought, let's do it out of 5, because it gets a bit silly if it's out of 10 or something. What would you rate Pirates of the Caribbean?
I would give it... Do you know what? I give it a 4.5. I'm going high. Because I really can't pinpoint very much that's wrong with it, if I'm honest. If I had to sit down with a gun to my head, I could probably tell you a few things that weren't like so great. But, and that probably would be maybe the runtime. But generally, the characters are... Yeah, I think Orlando's wooden acting is probably a couple of points off.
He's got a wooden leg there, he has.
What do you call a man with a wooden leg? Orlando. But generally, I mean, the soundtrack's awesome, the settings are awesome, the script is hilarious.
Yeah.
You can feel the love in it. The villain is fantastic and sympathetic, which I love. I love me a sympathetic villain. The female lead isn't annoying, I don't think, in this one, which is good.
Yeah.
Usually the female lead, I know it's going to sound terribly sexist, but generally headstrong female leads do piss me off a bit, because I just think, oh my God, get that bee out of your bonnet, love. Johnny Depp is standout. I don't know how he didn't win some kind of Oscar for it.
And and we should mention that, actually, he was nominated.
That's right, he was.
Normally what awards shows like to do is, when a successful franchise comes to a close, they will often give them a special award, or they will at least put them up for something. So I'm referring to Harry Potter. Now, when Harry Potter came to a close, the British Academy gave the Outstanding Award for British contribution to British film
That's nice.
to the producers of Harry Potter. Now, obviously, they would never have been nominated for Best Actors or Best Film.
No, my God. The acting in Harry Potter, I'm sorry, is atrocious.
Yes, but it's a nice way.
It's awful.
It's a nice way to put a end of an era on something. So it's often nice. Now, the American Academy, which is like the Academy Awards, the Oscars, they didn't give the film franchise anything like that. Even though I argue they should, but they did give Johnny Depp a Best Actor award.
Right.
But he obviously didn't win. He got the nomination, but he didn't win. But even that was a bit controversial, because that was the same year that Robert Downey Jr. got the nod for Tropic Thunder.
Oh.
Yes. So I think it was kind of considered a bad year.
A tough year, yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like, I want to give it a 5, but something's stopping me from doing that. So I think a 4.5 is a happy medium. I just think it's such a well-made film, and the only other Disney live-action film I can sort of compare it to being a well-made film is National Treasure. To me, it has the same kind of joy, same kind of like action adventure in a kind of otherworldly setting that is not too far from our reality, but is far enough removed from our reality that you can sort of believe it. On the whole, Disney makes such well-made films anyway. Like, the production value is so high because they have so much money.
Yeah.
But if it was a shoddier production, I think it would actually ruin my sort of engagement with it. Like, I think I'd be taken out of the film if certain things were like, you know, shoddy sets or locations that you think to yourself, that's not the Bunny Ears Caribbean, that's the, you know, swimming centre down the road.
Yeah. I was thinking, maybe I'll say that, to improve on the film, that they could get some better actors. But reflecting on it, actually, I think the fact that some of the acting is a bit hammy and stuff, it increases the charm factor.
Yeah.
I think if you had someone really, really, no shade on Orlando Bloom, but, if you had somebody who was just fantastic at acting, was very subtle and very, very good at enunciating, then it would probably make his character a bit less lovable.
I know I keep saying it, but like, because I keep saying he's adorable, but what I mean by that is that he's adorable in his naivety, and I think that's helped by the fact that there's nothing there behind the eyes sometimes with the acting.
Yeah.
I do think he improves. I think 2 and 3, he actually shows that he's a more accomplished actor at that point. But in the first one, it works so well. And also, Keira Knightley, even though she was unknown, she had a few experiences on being on set. Like, she was in Phantom Menace in a blink and you miss it part.
That's right. And she was in Bend It Like Beckham as well, wasn't she, I think?
Yeah.
Just
and
before.
She was in a little indie horror film, The Hole.
Oh, yeah.
She was in that before she did Pirates. I believe. I could be wrong about that, but
I think you're right.
I think I am right, because after this, her career took off. And obviously, Johnny Depp, where was his career at this point?
2003, so he would have been still pretty hot,
He was still like a worthy commodity,
Yeah.
I think, yeah. So I think, so he was the starring role, really. So you don't want to overshadow him. And even though Jeffrey Rush would have been an accomplished actor and a thespian that people would know, I think if you surround a cast that has Johnny Depp in it, you need to surround them by cannon fodder. Not to sound horrible, but
no, it's true.
I think they were lucky in that everything worked out the way it did. You are able to surround your main star by people who don't overshadow him, but then hold their own at the same time.
I think what I like about, because the scenes with just Elizabeth and Will, they are a little bit slow, and obviously they're not the best actors, so it is a little bit trite. However, they're very short. If they went on a whacking great big adventure together, I think then I get a bit like, oh god.
There's always someone there with them to sort of counteract to bounce off them and to counteract the, oh, we're in love, innocent we? Like, that would annoy me, and it gets to a point in 3 where I'm a little bit annoyed. You know the scenes where they're sort of like declaring their undying love for each other because they think they're going to go off and die. I'm like, okay, come on, we know you're not going to die. Just get on with it.
Yeah.
But then it makes that real, sort of heart-wrenching curse at the end when Will can't be with her that much more powerful.
Yeah, I have such a problem with that, because don't get me wrong, I understand that it's sad things happen, but when I watch a film, especially a pirate adventure film, I want to be lifted up. I don't want to be depressed. At the end of the 3rd film, I was so depressed.
And I think that's why, because they had a little Easter egg at the end of the credits for 3. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, with the sun.
Yeah, the shot of green, and you see a older Elizabeth with her kids, so he's coming back to see them. But even so,
yeah, but that's depressing.
Yeah, I
still.
know. But that's a tangent we can get on another time, because you might. Oh God. We might do a special podcast when we talk about a franchise as a whole. That might be quite fun. But
it might be, yeah.
But before we leave,
are you going to declare your undying love in case you never see each other again?
Yes. Jess, it's been fun, but no, we've got to do at least 2 more to be a trilogy.
That's true.
Yeah, we'll declare undying love then. But
Okay,
speaking of love, the next film is Jess's choice, and I I do know what it is because she's told me, but we need to let you know. So, Jess, what is the next film we'll be talking about?
It may not be the most popular choice in the rom-com category, but I am choosing While You Were Sleeping. It's from 1995. Sandra Bullock and Bill Pullman. It's one of my absolute favourites of all time. I've heard it referred to as the hot chocolate of movies.
Is it a Netflix and chill film, is it?
Well, I'd say it's my version of Netflix and chill. Maybe not some young guns. But
Well, I'm very excited to watch this film because I do know that it's a film that I haven't seen. It's one of the very rare Sandra Bullock films that I haven't seen.
I think you'll like it. Yeah.
And I love a bit of Bill Pullman. I didn't know Bill Pullman was in it.
He's not aged well. but at the time he was quite nice.
So make sure you get that film watched. Was it While You Were Sleeping?
Indeed.
By the time we come back here next month. And before we go, I kindly ask that you rate, review, subscribe, thumbs up, and 5-star the podcast wherever you listen to us. As a new podcast, not only does this help us to gain new listeners, but also helps us to grow the Reely Rated community, which I know myself and Jess are really passionate about doing. Which brings me on to the next port of call. We would really love if you would email any questions you may have and your own reviews about the films you have discussed so far, which is only one so far, given Pirates. But we would love to hear your opinions on the film. So please email us at reelyrated@gmail.com. That's all one word. I'll say it again. reelyrated@gmail.com. Not only would myself and Jess be fascinated to hear what you guys think, but we would love to share your thoughts and opinions on the pod in the future.
Yeah, and we are still learning, so by this time next year we'll be like the best podders in the world. There'll be no dick jokes. There'll be no.
Well, there might be dick jokes.
Maybe the odd one. But we're trying.
Thank you so much for joining us on our first movie review podcast. I hope you had as much fun as we had talking about Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, and we will join you next month for While You Were Sleeping.
Sorry, I couldn't think of anything to say then.
No, we'll just say bye now.
Bye now.
Bye now.